Lily walked into the restaurant with her heart beating fast. She had spent the whole afternoon choosing her dress, curling her hair, and putting on a little makeup. Tonight was supposed to be special. Tonight was her blind date. She wanted to believe that this time would be different. She wanted to believe that maybe this would be the start of something new. She sat at the table near the soft candlelight, her hands folded together as she waited. The warm glow of the restaurant wrapped around her, but inside she felt nervous. She kept checking her phone to make sure she was not too early. She looked around at the other tables where couples were laughing and leaning close to one another. It made her heart ache with both hope and fear. When Jason walked in, Lily recognized him from the picture she had seen online. He was tall, with sharp features, and dressed in a neat shirt and jacket. She stood up with a smile and greeted him with a gentle hello. At first, his eyes softened, but then his expression quickly changed. His eyes moved down to her body, and his smile faded. Lily sat down again, trying to stay calm. Jason pulled out his chair, but the way he looked at her made her feel small. He did not see her bright smile or her kind eyes. He only saw her body and the curves she carried. They started talking, but his voice was distant. He asked short questions and gave quick answers. He kept glancing around the restaurant as if he wanted to be somewhere else. Lily tried to keep the conversation alive. She told him about her job, her hobbies, and her love for books. She wanted to share her world with him, but his mind was not with her. Finally, Jason leaned back in his chair. He cleared his throat and said in a flat tone that he did not think they were a good match. He mentioned that he wanted someone who fit his lifestyle better. Words cut like cold glass. Lily heard what he did not say. She knew what he really meant. He thought she was too fat for him. The rest of the restaurant faded for a moment as Lily forced herself to nod. She did not want to cry in front of him. She smiled weakly and said she understood. Jason stood up, left money for his drink on the table, and walked out without looking back.
Elvis.
Lily sat still. Her chest felt heavy as the candle flickered in front of her. She wanted to disappear into the shadows of the restaurant. Around her, people were still laughing, clinking glasses, and enjoying their evenings. She pressed her hands together and took a deep breath, trying to hold back the tears that burned her eyes. Wondered if love was meant for her at all. Every time she opened her heart, it seemed to end in the same way. She wanted someone to see her soul and not just her body. She wanted someone to love her for her kindness, her dreams, and her laughter. As she sat alone, she did not notice that a man at the next table had been watching the scene unfold. His eyes were not filled with pity, but with something else, something that carried warmth and strength. His presence was calm, and his gaze lingered on her with quiet respect. Lily brushed a tear from the corner of her eye. She did not know yet that her story was not ending here. She did not know that this painful moment was about to change her life in a way she could never imagine. Lily sat at the table and stared at the candlelight. She felt like the flame was stronger than her own spirit at that moment. The soft glow touched her face, while her heart tried to hide the pain. She wanted to leave, but her body felt heavy. She stayed seated, trying to gather the strength to stand up. The waiter came by and asked if she was doing all right. She gave him a small smile and nodded, even though her chest was tight. She did not want anyone to see her sadness. She picked up her glass of water and took a sip, hoping it would wash away the lump in her throat. She looked around the restaurant again. Couples were still smiling, talking, and holding hands. Their laughter felt like music she could not dance to. It reminded her of everything she wished for but could not reach. The feeling of being left out grew stronger. At the next table, Ethan had been watching her with quiet attention. He had seen how Jason looked at her and how quickly he walked away. Ethan had watched the way Lily tried to keep her dignity, even when her heart was breaking. He admired her strength even though she thought she had none. Ethan was not only a successful man in his career, but also someone who believed that people should be valued for who they were. He had always believed that real beauty was more than what the eyes could see. When he looked at Lily, he saw a woman who carried warmth, honesty, and a deep heart. Lily finally picked up her phone and pretended to scroll through it. She wanted to look busy so people would not notice she was alone. She tapped the screen with her fingers, but her eyes were still wet. Her thoughts were loud inside her mind. She asked herself why she kept trying, why she let herself hope again and again. Just then, she heard a calm voice from the table beside hers. Ethan leaned a little closer and spoke softly so only she could hear. He said she did not deserve what had just happened. His words were simple, but carried a truth that reached her heart. Lily turned her head and saw him clearly for the first time. His dark hair was neat, his suit fit him well, and his eyes carried a steady kindness. There was no judgment in his face. There was no coldness in his tone. His presence felt different from what she had known before. For a moment she was unsure how to respond. She gave a polite smile and said thank you. She wanted to believe his words, but part of her still felt guarded. She did not want another person to make her feel small. Ethan noticed her hesitation, but he did not push. He simply smiled back and said that people who fail to see true worth are blind to what matters most. His voice was firm, yet gentle. He spoke like someone who meant every word. Lily felt a spark inside her. It was small, but it was real. She wondered why this stranger cared to say anything at all. She wondered why his words touched her more deeply than the cruel silence she had just faced. The candle on her table flickered again, casting light between the two tables. For the first time that night, Lily did not feel completely alone. Something in the air had shifted. She could not explain it, but she could feel it. The man at the next table was not just another guest in the restaurant. His presence carried weight, and his words carried comfort she had been longing for. Lily sat in silence for a moment after hearing Ethan's kind words. She felt her cheeks warm as if the candlelight had reached deeper into her heart. She wanted to believe his voice, but her past experiences made her cautious. She folded her hands on the table and lowered her eyes. Ethan watched her gently. He did not want her to feel pressured. He only wanted her to know that she was not invisible. After a pause, he spoke again. He asked if she would like to join him at his table, so she would not have to sit alone. His tone was soft and respectful. Lily hesitated. Her first thought was to say no. She did not want pity. She did not want to be seen as someone who needed saving. But when she looked into Ethan's eyes, she saw no sign of pity. She saw sincerity and calm strength. Slowly she nodded and said yes. Ethan stood and pulled out the chair across from him. Lily moved her things and sat down at his table. For the first time since Jason had left, she felt her shoulders relax just a little. She noticed that the space around them seemed quieter. Even though the restaurant was still full, they began to talk. At first their words were simple. Ethan asked about her favorite books, and Lily spoke about the novels she loved to read. She asked him about his work, and he explained a little about his company without boasting. Their voices blended with the soft music in the background. As they spoke, Ethan laughed lightly at one of her stories. His laughter was warm and genuine. Lily was surprised by how natural it felt to share her thoughts with him. She had expected the evening to end in pain, but now she was sharing real conversation with someone who listened. The more she spoke, the more Ethan leaned forward, showing interest in her every word. He asked questions about her hobbies and her dreams. He did not cut her off or change the subject. He made her feel that her voice mattered. For Lily, this was something rare and precious. Lily found herself relaxing more with every minute. She told him about her love for painting, even though she had never shown her work to anyone. Ethan's eyes lit up with curiosity, and he said that he admired people who created art. He asked her what inspired her. She told him she painted when she wanted to express feelings she could not put into words. Ethan nodded and said that was a gift. His words touched her because they felt real. No one had ever told her that before. In that moment, she began to see herself through a different light. The waiter came by to check on them, and Ethan ordered dessert for both of them. Lily was about to refuse, but he smiled and said that life was sweeter when shared. She agreed and felt her heart lift at his easy kindness. As the evening went on, Lily noticed something important. She had not once thought about her body or how she looked. She had not worried about being judged. She was simply being herself. That realization made her eyes shine. Ethan saw that spark, and it made him admire her even more. He thought about how rare it was to find someone with such honesty in their heart. He felt drawn to her in a way that went beyond appearances. When they finished dessert, Ethan suggested they take a short walk outside before saying goodbye. Lily felt nervous but also excited. She nodded again, knowing that something new was beginning. Ethan and Lily stepped outside the restaurant into the cool night air. The city was alive with the glow of streetlights and the quiet hum of passing cars. For Lily, the fresh air felt like a release after the heavy emotions inside. She pulled her shawl around her shoulders, while Ethan walked beside her with calm steps. They did not speak at first. The silence was not uncomfortable, but rather gentle, like a pause that gave them both space to breathe. The night sky was clear, and a few stars peeked through the city lights. Ethan glanced at her and noticed how the soft glow of the streetlights touched her face. He thought she looked peaceful, even though her heart had been tested earlier. Ethan asked if she wanted to walk toward the fountain in the small park nearby. Lily agreed, and they crossed the street together. Her steps were careful, but she felt lighter than before. She still could not believe how the evening had changed so suddenly. She had walked in with hope, then felt rejection, and now she was walking beside someone who seemed to see her in a different way. When they reached the park, the fountain stood in the center, its water shimmering under the lights. They paused there, and Ethan leaned slightly on the stone edge. Lily stood beside him, watching the water rise and fall. The sound of it was soothing, and for a moment she let herself relax completely. Ethan turned to her and spoke in a steady voice. He said he had watched how she handled herself earlier in the restaurant. He told her that most people would have broken down or walked out, but she held herself with strength. His words touched her, and she felt her chest tighten with emotion. Lily admitted that she had been close to breaking, she told him. She had grown tired of being judged by her body and not her heart. She said she often wondered if she would ever find someone who cared about her true self. Her voice shook slightly, but she did not hide her feelings. Ethan listened carefully. He did not interrupt, and when she finished, he looked into her eyes. He told her that real love had nothing to do with size or shape. He said that people who measure love by appearance do not understand what it means to share life with another soul. His voice carried honesty, and Lily felt that he meant every word. She lowered her eyes, unsure of what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like that. She felt a warmth spread inside her, not from flattery but from truth. She realized that Ethan was not trying to charm her, but to show her that she was already enough. They stood together in silence again, watching the fountain. A small breeze lifted her hair, and Ethan noticed the way she tucked it behind her ear. It was a simple gesture, but it made her seem even more human and real to him. He thought about how rare it was to meet someone who carried both strength and tenderness. Lily finally looked up and smiled, a real smile that came from the heart. She thanked him for speaking with her, and for seeing her in a way no one else had. Ethan returned her smile, and said he was only speaking what he believed. As they began walking back toward the street, Lily felt something she had not felt in a long time. It was the beginning of hope, not the fragile hope that breaks easily, but a stronger kind that grows when someone finally sees who you are. The night air felt crisp as Lily and Ethan walked slowly down the path that led out of the park. The city was still alive around them, but inside their small world it felt quiet and calm. Lily kept her eyes on the pavement, her mind full of questions. She wondered why this stranger cared, why he spoke to her in a way that reached her heart. Ethan glanced at her often. He noticed the way she held her shawl close, the way her steps were careful, and the way her smile appeared and disappeared, as if she was still learning how to trust the moment. He wanted to say something that would ease her doubts, but he also knew that sometimes silence carried its own comfort. When they reached the corner of the street, Ethan stopped and asked if she wanted to keep walking, or if she would prefer to sit for a while. Lily thought for a moment and chose to sit on a nearby bench under a tree. The bench was old but steady, and the light above them cast a soft glow. They sat side by side, and for a while they listened to the sounds of the city. A car passed in the distance, laughter came from a group walking by, and the fountain's water still hummed behind them. Lily took a deep breath and said she had not expected the evening to turn out this way. She admitted she had almost gone home the moment Jason left. Ethan turned toward her and said he was glad she stayed. His words were simple, but they made her heart stir. She felt something inside her shift, as if a door she had kept closed for years had opened just a little. Lily began to talk about her life. She told him about her small apartment, her love for painting, and her dream of one day opening a little gallery. She spoke slowly at first, but as Ethan listened without judgment, her words flowed more easily. She confessed that she often hid her art because she feared people would laugh at her. Ethan shook his head gently and told her that art was not meant to be hidden. He said her work carried her soul, and that anyone who could not see its value did not deserve to look at it. His words brought a warmth to her chest. She realized no one had ever spoken to her with such belief before. The conversation shifted to him. Ethan shared stories about his work, not in the way most men boasted, but in a way that showed his passion for building something meaningful. He admitted that his position as a leader often left him surrounded by people who wanted something from him, but very few who wanted to know the man behind the title. Lily listened closely. She understood the loneliness in his words, even though his life looked perfect from the outside. She told him that she believed everyone carried invisible weights, no matter how they looked or what they owned. Ethan nodded and said that was true, and that was why honesty was rare and precious. As they spoke, the distance between them seemed to shrink. Lily felt her heart racing, not from fear, but from the strange connection she was beginning to sense. It was as if a thread had tied itself between them, pulling them closer in ways she could not explain. When the night grew later, Ethan walked her to the street where she could find a cab. They stopped near the corner, and she turned to him with a shy smile. She thanked him again for the kindness he had shown her. He smiled back and told her it was not kindness, but truth. As she stepped into the cab, their eyes met one more time. In that quiet moment, Lily felt something powerful. It was more than gratitude, more than comfort. It was the beginning of a bond that felt deeper than chance. The days after that night moved forward, yet Lily kept thinking about Ethan. She replayed his words in her mind, the way he had looked at her, and the calm strength in his voice. She was not used to someone seeing her beyond the surface. His presence stayed with her like a quiet echo that refused to fade. Ethan also carried her in his thoughts. His life as a leader was full of meetings, decisions, and people who looked at him for what he could provide. Yet when he remembered Lily, he felt something different. She had spoken with honesty, and she had listened with a heart that cared. It reminded him of what he had been missing. One evening, Ethan decided to call her. Lily was surprised when she saw his name on her phone. She answered with a soft voice, and he asked if she would like to meet again. Her heart raced, and though she felt nervous, she said yes. They agreed to meet at a small cafe near the park. When Lily arrived at the cafe, she found Ethan already waiting. He stood up as she entered and greeted her with a smile that felt warm and steady. They sat by the window where the light from outside touched their table. The cafe was quiet, filled with the soft sound of music and the smell of coffee. They spoke for hours. Lily told him about her childhood, how she always loved to draw, how she used colors to escape the sadness she sometimes felt. Ethan shared stories about his early years, how he had built his company from the ground, and how success often came with loneliness. The more they shared, the more their connection deepened. It felt as if each word was a thread weaving them closer together. Lily found herself laughing, not the polite laughter she gave to strangers, but the true kind that came from joy. Ethan listened with focus, smiling when her eyes lit up as she spoke about things she loved. At one point, Ethan leaned forward and told her that he believed in soul strings. He explained that he thought every person carried invisible strings that reached out across the world, searching for the one who matched them. When two people were meant to find each other, the strings pulled them together no matter the distance or the time. Lily listened with wonder. She had never heard it described that way, yet it felt true. She thought about how she had met him in such an unexpected moment, after such a painful rejection. She began to believe that maybe this meeting was not an accident. As they walked out of the cafe later, the evening sky was painted with shades of gold and blue. They walked side by side, and the silence between them felt full, not empty. Lily glanced at him and felt her chest fill with something she had not allowed herself to feel in a long time. Hope was no longer fragile but steady. Ethan stopped near the park fountain, the same one they had visited before. He looked at her and said he wanted her to know she was already enough, just as she was. His words carried no doubt, only truth. Lily felt her eyes grow wet, but this time it was not from sadness. It was from the sudden weight of happiness pressing against her heart. She smiled through the tears and whispered her thanks. In that moment, under the glow of the evening sky and the gentle sound of the fountain, something unspoken grew between them. It was not rushed, and it was not forced. It was the quiet strength of two souls beginning to recognize each other. Months passed, and the bond between Lily and Ethan grew stronger with every meeting. What had started as a painful evening turned into the beginning of something beautiful. They spoke often, shared meals, and spent time walking through parks and quiet streets. Each day, they learned more about each other, and each day the thread between them pulled tighter. Lily felt herself changing. She no longer walked with her shoulders bent down. She no longer avoided mirrors or felt ashamed of her reflection. Ethan's words had given her the courage to see her worth. He reminded her again and again that her soul was brighter than any surface. His steady presence taught her that love was about connection, not appearance. Ethan also changed. For years he had lived with a sense of distance, surrounded by people who cared only about his position and power. With Lily, he was no longer a leader or a businessman. He was simply a man who wanted to love and be loved. Her honesty gave him peace, and her laughter gave him joy. One evening, Ethan invited Lily back to the same restaurant where they had first met. At first, she felt nervous. The memory of that night still carried pain, but she trusted Ethan and agreed to go. She wore the same navy blue dress she had worn on the blind date, but this time she walked with her head high. When they entered together, people turned their heads, but Lily did not feel small. She felt proud. Ethan held her hand firmly, and the warmth of his touch told her she was no longer alone. They sat at a table near the soft candlelight, and Lily looked around. Instead of sadness, she felt strength. This place no longer held the memory of rejection. It now held the beginning of her new story. Ethan ordered dinner, and they spoke as easily as they always did. Lily's heart felt light as she watched him smile at her. She remembered the man who had left her at this place months ago, and she realized she no longer carried his shadow. His words no longer mattered, because Ethan's presence had given her a new truth. After dinner, Ethan reached across the table and held her hand. His eyes were steady as he spoke. He told her that from the first moment he saw her, he had felt something he could not explain. He said he believed their meeting was not chance, but destiny. He told her that her soul was the string that had always been waiting for his. Lily's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of joy. She whispered that she felt the same, that she had never imagined someone would see her the way he did. She told him she believed in the soul strings too, and that their hearts had found each other against all odds. The candle between them flickered brightly, and the glow filled their faces. Around them the restaurant carried on, but for them time stood still. They were two souls tied by something stronger than words, stronger than fear, stronger than rejection. When they left the restaurant that night, they stepped into the cool air hand in hand. Lily felt the night sky open above them, and her heart felt at home. Ethan looked at her with the same steady kindness, and she knew this was not the end of her journey, but the beginning of a love that would last. Her story had started with pain, but it had grown into hope, and now it rested in love. The girl who once felt invisible had become the woman whose soul was seen, cherished, and chosen. The rejection that once broke her heart had guided her into the arms of the one who would never let go.